There's something that you really got to know about Tulsi Gabbard.
I was 21 years old back in 2002 in Hawaii when very passionate about the environment. I decided to run for the state house in Hawaii. Had never declared a political affiliation before then, and really started to think about which party do I want to, which box do I want to check on that form to file my election papers. And looking at the history of the Democratic Party, especially in Hawaii, I was inspired by leaders who were fighting for plantation workers who were working under terrible conditions, inspired by national leaders like Martin Luther King, President JFK. And I saw a big tent inclusive Democratic Party that welcomed people who held views across the spectrum on the biggest issues of the day.
Big tent, inclusive Democratic Party. Yeah, but are they controlled by the bankers? Did they lay cover for the fiat currency petrodollar Ponzi scheme? Did they approve and wink the eye at the IRS and the Patriot Act and for the NDAA and for the TSA and for the Department of Homeland Security and for DEA? Don't tell me about big tent inclusivity. Don't tell me about all that garbage about democracy. Tell me about how the Democrat or the Republican Party is actually fighting tyranny instead of being the tyrants who are laying down all this domestic terroristic abuse of the American people.
Who stood up for civil liberties, who stood up for free speech, and it made sense to me to join the Democratic Party. The Republican Party in Hawaii especially had been the party of the elite.
It made sense to you to stand up to the. It doesn't make any sense. The Democratic Party for a long time has been anti-Second Amendment. So you decided, Tulsi, to be anti-Second Amendment. And if the Second Amendment, if failing on the Second Amendment was all that was wrong with the Democratic Party, that is enough to have never joined it. Because we all know that if you're against the Second Amendment, then you're against protection of the American people. If you're against protection of the American people, then you're against their lives and their fortunes, and they're against their property rights, and you're their enemy. So you going into that, and I don't think Tulsi Gabbard is a stupid person. I think she's very smart. You went into it with eyes wide open, knowing that you were joining a party that was decidedly anti-American. Don't give me this big tent inclusivity nonsense, because that's what it is. It's big tent inclusivity nonsense. You knew what you were getting into, and you got into it anyway. You knew it was a dangerous lion's den where they were tearing Americans apart, and you decided to join it and participate anyway.
To the party of the rich and powerful. And I was interested in being a part of a party that was fighting for the people and fighting to protect our environment.
That is such BS. We're protecting our environment as we're building our empire. As we're nation building, as we're Democrats and Republicans are jet setting across the country while us little people have to manage and reduce our carbon footprint.
Forward over the years, you look back at when I ran for president in 2020, really living through what we are seeing now in like high definition and in extreme, which is how this Democratic Party of today that's controlled by fanatical ideologues through that presidential campaign as a Democrat.
You don't have to be fanatical. You don't have to be, actually, tyranny is fanatical, but there are people like Tulsi Gabbard who don't recognize tyranny. They wouldn't recognize tyranny if people enacted a mask mandate, take the VAXX, or you can't have a job, social distance, stay 6 feet apart, don't go outside of your house. If that hit her in the face, she wouldn't recognize tyranny. Why? Because she's against AK-47s, AR-15s, what she calls high-capacity magazines, which are standard capacity magazines. She's for criminalizing those who hold them. She was part of the military-industrial complex, and I question if you're ever once a part of the military-industrial complex, aren't you always a part of the military-industrial complex? It's kind of like we always say, if you're a CIA director or part of the CIA, and then you retire, aren't you kind of always a part of the CIA?
Democratic candidate for president, they attempted to limit my ability to speak to voters, limit my exposure, and actively sought to undermine and smear my character and credibility in my campaign.
And you still stayed with them For years afterwards, you saw what they did with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. You saw that the guy got railroaded. Not that I'm in the corner for Bernie Sanders or anything. You were decidedly against Joe Biden because you ran against him, but then you voted for him anyway. That is a person who's not principled. If you're going to stand on a debate stage next to somebody going, they're not the right answer. As a matter of fact, if you vote for this person as opposed to vote for me, Tulsi Gabbard says, they're going to run this America into the ground. And yet you turn around and because you're part of the party, you walk away from you completely abandon and throw into the trash can any principle, any modicum of principality or principles you might have had, and then you go and you vote for the guy that you told us not to vote for because he's going to run America into the ground. That's what I can't stand. You get 20 Democrats on the stage vying and fighting and spending campaign funds. You got Amy Klobuchar, you got Tulsi Gabbard, you got Beto O'Rourke, you got them out there going, and you got Kamala Harris, and they're saying, no, don't vote for Biden. That's a bad guy. You want to vote for me? I'm a good guy. But then you turn around and you go, well, I'm going to go ahead and lend that person my support. They have my endorsement. You frickin' compromiser. You unprincipled nitwit. You knew it was dark. You knew it was corrupt. You knew the game was fixed and you joined it anyway. You knew they were anti-gun, which is anti-American, and you joined it anyway. Don't sit here and try to make excuses. And then she's talking to Megyn Kelly here. You can't see the other side of this, but she's talking to Megyn Kelly. It says the Megyn Kelly Show. And Megyn Kelly is not going to push her nose to the grindstone and not going to hold her accountable and hold her feet to the fire. No, because that's not what fake stream prostitutes do. They're corporate media shills. They're teleprompter reading psychopaths. They just want that paycheck. They don't care about dispensing the truth.
This has not stopped. Anytime the Democratic Party leaders see someone that challenges their narrative, that questions the policies they're putting forward.
Question the policies. You mean like anti-gun policies? You mean like gun control, which equals people control policies? You mean like that, Tulsi? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. There's more about Tulsi that you don't know about that I just found out this week.
Than just saying, you know what, hey, I disagree with her, and here are the reasons why. Instead, they take those tactics of smear, destroy, cancel, work with big tech to censor because they don't stand for freedom. They don't believe in the Constitution and are actively...
By the way, I stand for freedom, and I'm going to take your guns. You can't have AK-47s. They're very dangerous. They're weapons of war. They're weapons of mass destruction. You can't have them. I'm going to make a law. Look at Tulsi Gabbard's website. She's all over being against that stuff. Weapons of war. Who needs weapons of war? No American needs an AK-47 or an AR-15.
Seeking to undermine our God-given rights enshrined in the Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. They want to control the way we think. They want to control what information we see. And it got to a point where this is a party that I can no longer associate myself with because of the danger and threat that it poses to our country, to our democracy.
Threat to our democracy. So stay tuned. Let me show you Tulsi Gabbard, what she's really into, what she was really about, and what's still in her. And again, guys, you really don't need to know any more about Tulsi Gabbard than she wants to take your guns. She wants to criminalize you for owning an inanimate object. But here's what I learned about her, and this is from Wikipedia. You can look this up. You can cross-reference this to other places, but this is distilled pretty well. She achieved the rank of lieutenant colonel, and check out her unit: United States Army Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command, United States Army Reserve. Any red flags going off right about now? She was a psychological operations commander. Let's read a little bit further about this. What is psychological operations? I bet most Americans have never heard of PSYOPs or psychological operations. And if they have, they probably equate it with us crazy conspiracy theorists. Gabbard is a recipient of the Combat Medical Badge and the Meritorious Service Medal. On October 12th, 2015, she was promoted from the rank of captain to major at a ceremony at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. She continues to serve as a major in the Hawaii Army National Guard until her unit transfer to the 351st Civilian Affairs Command, a California-based United States Army Reserve unit assigned to the United States Army Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command in June of 2020. You don't say. She was part of Psychological Operations Command. Let's keep reading. Psychological warfare are a vital part of the broad range of U.S. political, military, economic, and ideological activities used by the U.S. government to secure national objectives. Are national objectives your objectives? Are national objectives principled objectives, non-criminal objectives, morally based objectives? PSYOPs is the dissemination of information to foreign audiences in support of U.S. policy and national objectives. How many times have we seen nefarious support of evil foreign policy? How many people have died and how many trillions of dollars were spent and extorted from the American people in the name of foreign policy? Psychological operations seek to twist the mind and make people believe something that's actually not true so that they can reach an end that serves the purposes of foreign policy and foreign policy engineers and social engineers and psychological manipulators. Because that's what this is. Psychological war is psychological manipulation. Used during peacetime, contingencies, and declared war, these activities are not forms of force, but are force multipliers. It's worse than force. You know the force that you would have had? Well, when you bring psychological operations online, you multiply that force, and that becomes a force multiplier more formidable than the former force. Holy cow! Force multipliers that use non-violent means in often violent environments, but they get what they want. They achieve their ends. Persuading rather than compelling physically, they rely on logic, fear, desire, and other mental factors to promote specific emotions, attitudes, or behaviors. To promote or to manipulate. Logic or disinformation, dissemination of disinformation and misinformation. So they rely on fear, do they? What can you do when you bring a person to fear? You can manipulate them. And then when you can manipulate them, what's the next step? Enslaving them. And when you enslave them, you can disarm them and you can take their property. And then maybe, I don't know, just maybe historically, if you could pour out the annals of history here before us, maybe it would teach us that those persuaded, disinformation given, manipulated, enslaved, disarmed masses end up becoming unalive. In addition to supporting command or PSYOP units, provide interagency support to other U.S. government agents. Oh, like the Department of Homeland Security, like maybe the TSA, maybe the FBI, maybe the surveillance apparatus that Edward Snowden let us know that's set up against us. In operations ranging from humanitarian assistance to drug interdiction. How about drug promotion and sales? How about the 90% of the opium trade that was apprehended for about 20 years by the U.S. military-industrial complex? Psychological operations enhance the impact of those agencies' actions. Their activities can be used to spread information or disinformation about ongoing programs to gain support from the local populace. Or how about to pull the wool over the eyes of the local populace? And who was one of the commanders of that? Well, it was gun grabber Tulsi Gabbard. Anti-American, anti-freedom. I'm going to take your guns and I'm going to criminalize you if you hold it. Tulsi Gabbard. That's all I need to know about Tulsi Gabbard is she's anti-Second Amendment. So it doesn't surprise me that she was a psychological operator in the high command. Doesn't surprise me at all. Does it surprise you? Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget, this was brought to you by All Guns Matter, and all the shirts and designs that I have available in the shirt store. You can get free standard shipping until October 23rd, which is tomorrow at 12 midnight. Appreciate you guys being here. I will see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow ban video.